Are you looking for details of the most beautiful weekend hikes in southeast Queensland and further afield? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Everyday Hiker podcast. My name is Beck and I'm your host. Join me and my guest hikers as we share amazing locations, practical tips and guides for new hikers, as well as those with some more experience looking for inspiration. And please, if you like what you hear, follow me, share with your friends, rate my podcast and send me your feedback. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Noosa. It's mine and I'm sure a lot of other people's favourite place to have a holiday, and I think while the beach is magic up there, there's so many beautiful natural attractions in Noosa that would be a shame not to go for a bushwalk or a hike while you were in the region. So I went recently and I revisited the Noosa Coastal Walk and just reminded myself how beautiful it is and how worthy it was to talk about walks you can do while you're on holidays or even on a day trip to Noosa. Okay, so let's talk about the iconic Noosa Coastal Walk first. This walk can be accessed via the main street in Noosa Heads, which is Hastings Street, or the southern end of the Noosa main beach, and you just walk straight up the path and boardwalk into the Noosa National Park entrance. It's an out and back walk, which is approximately 11 kilometres if you do it this way. You can also do it as a one-way walk from Sunshine Beach to Noosa Heads, which is about 6 kilometres, but you'll obviously need a car at each end, or you could take a bus down to Sunshine Beach or back from Sunshine Beach if you wanted to do it that way, slightly shorter walk. My suggestion is that you do the walk as a circuit, but instead of going out and back, you go and use the inland trails of Noosa National Park. You loop around to Sunshine Beach before making your way back to Noosa Heads, and doing it that way is about 12 kilometres. To access the inland trails, you'll simply turn right at the entrance to the National Park and go up the trails heading up to the right. You can also access them in the streets just before the National Park entrance via Kareela Avenue, or the way that I did it, if you go up to the back of the Peppers Resort on Viewland Drive, and you might find parking easier up there as well, you can jump onto the trail from that entrance as well. The inland trails are much quieter than the coastal route. There's some really pretty vegetation. You get glimpses of the coast as you're walking along. And a lot of it is quite shaded, which is important because the coastal walk isn't always shaded. And it's a sandy track, so fairly soft on the feet. There is a little bit of elevation going over Noosa Hill, but nothing too strenuous. And I went first thing in the morning and only saw a few people. That was a really lovely way to start the walk. And because it's quieter, you've also got that added bonus that you might see more of the wildlife in the inland trails than what you see on the coastal trails. So definitely keep an eye out. I saw some black cockatoos, lizards. Wasn't lucky enough to spot a koala on the recent one, but they're definitely there to look for. So you're heading for the trail that takes you down to Sunshine Beach, and you'll probably need all trails running just to keep you on track and make sure you find the right path, because there's quite a number of trails that crisscross over, and it's not a huge issue if you take the wrong one. You'll end up on the coastal walk a bit earlier than what you planned. The last bit of the trail as you're coming out towards Sunshine Beach is pretty steep. It's probably really one of the only parts of the trail that you might want to use hiking poles for. So good if you can fold them up and you won't need them in other parts. So you walk down this very steep hill and you can choose to go left and up to the coastal walk, but you can also go straight ahead down to Sunshine Beach, stop in there for a swim or a break. There's a little creek and some rock pools at that northern end of the beach. And that's you've done about 6 kilometres by that point, so it's a really good time to take a break. From here, you're turning around and climbing back up the headland. And I'm not going to lie, there's a few stairs to go up here, but it really isn't too tough. You need to get back up on the top of the headland. You walk along the cliff top and you reach what most people would consider the turnaround point if you were doing the circuit, the coastal walk in and out, and that's called Hell's Gate. And this viewpoint gives you a really fantastic view up and down the north end of the Sunshine Coast, and you can watch that sort of dramatic crashing of the waves on the headland below. From here, if you want a side trip, you can actually go down to the fairy pools. There's some really beautiful rock pools, much closer view of the coast from there. It's a little side trail. Next up, you're going to get to Granite Bay, and from here you have to go down onto the beach to continue the walk. And it is in full sun. There's no shade. You can't go unless you're sort of bush bashing through the along under the shade of the trees. You're going out onto the beach. It's a really beautiful beach, great place for a swim. It's so much less crowded than any of the other beaches, and particularly Noosa's main beach. And a lot of tourists don't get that far, so you will find it quieter. So another great place to stop is Granite Bay. Then you're going on to Dolphins Point, you'll start to pick up some of the crowds. True to form, I saw not only a lot of dolphins there, but also whales, having been there in September. And it's worth a stop to see what you can spy in the water from that vantage point. From there back to Noosa Heads, there are a series of viewing points. There's some lovely little small beaches, including Tea Tree Bay, which is very popular with surfers, which you could sit and watch them for a while. But the trail does get a lot busier, and it's one of the reasons I suggested walking inland first and then the coastal track on the return, as from Dolphin Point it's also mainly downhill or flat. In fact, I don't think there's any uphills. So if it's getting later in the day, or perhaps it's in the middle of the day, you'll probably be pretty happy to be going downhill, an easier walk. You'll probably feel a bit smug walking past the crowds that are heading out, and you get to cruise in, landing at Noosa Main Beach or Hastings Street for refreshments. One thing I noticed that a lot of people were walking in thongs and swimmers, and I absolutely get this if you are wanting to just go to one of the small beaches just around the headland. But if you're doing the whole circuit, I think you need walking shoes. It is quite a distance, and the furthest part of the trails there's a bit of uneven ground, particularly up around Hell's Gate. It's also pretty exposed to the sun up here, and there's no drinking water along the way, so just thinking about sunshade and water. So that's the Noosa Coastal Walk, an absolute must at any time of the year in my view, and I think if you're going to do one walk in Noosa, that's the one to do. But if you're keen for a few more challenges, then here's some other ideas fairly nearby, so all within about 30 minutes of Noosa. And the first one I'm going to suggest is to head to Mount Coolum. Take the coastal road from Noosa to Coolum. It's a little bit longer than the inland, which is sort of like a junction road, a big through road. It's far more scenic on the coastal road, and you'll go through Coolum to get to the entrance of Mount Coolum. You'll actually see it as you're approaching Coolum. You'll see the mountain on the right. The first part of the walk is a nice gentle stroll through woodlands, but then the fun begins. Mount Coolum is less than 300 metres in elevation, but it feels higher because it feels like the stairs just never end. There's just a series of steps going up and up and up. It's a great training mountain. You may see some people running up and down it because it's got those platform stairs that it makes it fairly okay to run up. It definitely gets your heart rate going, gets your quad strength going, and kids love it because they're like little mountain goats, don't seem to struggle as much as us. So if you've got a family, a good one to take them. When you get to the top, it's so worth it though. There are beautiful views out to the coastline, almost 180 degrees, and there's a large, flat, exposed area where you can sit and enjoy them. And if you walk around a bit, you'll also get sort of glimpses of the hinterland and the Glasshouse Mountains behind you. The only downside to Mount Coolum is that obviously it's popular as it's a fairly easy one to do. You'll probably meet others on the way up, and in some of the narrower parts it'll mean that you have to wait for people to pass. And also because it's sort of less than half an hour to get up or down, it's a perfect one that you could tackle at sunrise or sunset. I haven't done either of those, but I've seen pictures and I can just imagine, particularly the ones where people stay up for the sunset and then they wait until the night time comes and you get all those twinkling lights of the coastline. So Mount Coolum is another great little adventure while you're up at Noosa and not too far away. And when you're heading back to Noosa, I really love the Coolum Surf Club. So you've probably worked up a nice thirst by then. It's right on the beach. And so you could stop there for lunch, brekkie, whatever time of the day it is. And there's also a coastal clifftop walk at Coolum, which is much shorter, which you could sort of add on if you haven't had enough coastal views by then. So the next suggestion I have in the Noosa region is to head out to the hinterland and the town of Pomona. This is such a pretty town, a great place to start, some nice walking trails and one really adventurous mountain climb. So it's a really fun but more challenging climb, so it's probably not one for beginners, but certainly for people who want to, practice on a smaller mountain before they maybe head up some of the bigger Glasshouse Mountain ones, is Mount Karura. It's only a short climb, but it is steep. It is rated hard on all trails, and that will be because of the steepness at the top. You need to be fit, probably a little bit confident with heights because there is some exposure there. The climb starts off as a rocky trail, but it soon sort of changes to rock scrambling. And as you get closer to the top, there are some metal stairs, and that's why I'm saying if you're not great with heights, going up the metal stairs, but also using chains to hold you on some of those harder rock scrambles. It is pretty strenuous work, and it will probably take a couple of hours to get to the top and back, even though the elevation's not huge. I think it's about 439 metres. But the views from the top are really great, 360-degree views, and it's really worth the effort of this kind of Stairmaster type climb. If you're not great with heights, like I said, I would advise, perhaps leave this one alone. And if it's been wet, I haven't done it in the wet or after rain, but a lot of the reviews from people say that it gets really slippery. So definitely to check conditions before you head up there. If you're looking for a more sedate type of walk from Pomona, then a great one to try would be what's called the Karura Shared Trail, and that connects the towns of Pomona and Kooran. The trail is part of the Great Noosa Trail Walk, and it's a lovely, mostly shady walk through eucalypt forests. It goes past a really lovely lake, which is great for birdlife spotting. And that trail between the two towns is about 8.5 kilometres long. Once again, because it's a one-way walk, you either want to drop a car off at each town or you could get a taxi back. So there's definitely taxis operating in the area. And because if you did the whole walk, it would be about that 17 kilometres return, which is definitely doable, maybe lunch in the middle, but you can revisit what you saw on the way out when you come back in. When you get to Pomona, make sure you check out the Pomona Gin Distillery. They've got a really great courtyard garden area. The food is fabulous. You can do some gin tasting, and there's so many cute little shops in Pomona. It's definitely one worth doing a day trip to. There's some other lovely towns in this hinterland area. You could head out to Karoi, and there's a really nice walk around Lake McDonald from Karoi. So the final area that you could consider from Noosa is Lake Catharaba, and once again it's about a 30-minute drive to Boreen Point, which is the main sort of town on the lake. The lake is absolutely huge, but one of the fascinating things about it is it's only knee-deep pretty much all the way through it, right out until you're in the middle of the lake before you get away from it being knee-deep. So it's a great lake for paddling around in, whether you're swimming or on a kayak or a stand-up paddleboard or something. When it comes to walking, the trails are pretty short. They're only about 2.5 to 4.5 kilometres. So if you're looking for a family-friendly or a beginner walks, you want to see something a little bit different to the coast, then this is definitely an area to head to for those shorter walks. Another idea is you can walk from Boreen Point up to Habitat Noosa, and that walk is about 6.5 kilometres. And at Habitat Noosa, They've got watercraft for hire, as they do down at Boreen Point, including dinghies to get out on the lake. It's also a great place to have lunch. But also the Noosa Everglades tours go from there, and that's just a most wonderful area to go and check out some inland. They almost remind you sort of the bayous in southern US, although you won't see any big alligators jumping out of the water to get you, but a really pretty area. And at Noosa, at Habitat Noosa, you'll also see, if you're lucky, a heap of kangaroos hanging around. But once again, you're going to need to get back to Boreen Point. It's definitely an area where you could get a taxi, or you're turning around and doing that 6.5 kilometre walk back. This area is really close to the walking trails for the Cooloola Great Walk, which is, I hear a wonderful walk, certainly one on my bucket list, but I think I'll do a whole episode on that one. It's something definitely to feature in the future. Okay, so that's it for hiking and walking ideas around Noosa. I hope it inspires you to get up there, whether it's for a day trip, a weekend, or if you're lucky, for longer. There's just so many great places to visit. I think it'd be a shame not to get out and walk while you're there. So for now, enjoy it and happy hiking. Thank you for listening. You'll find details of the trails and locations discussed today in the show notes. And I'd love to hear from you. Please leave me your feedback, suggestions or ideas. And I'd really appreciate, once again, if you could rate me, follow or share me with your friends. See you next time.